Hey there, That's Life viewers. Welcome to our show this evening. I'm super excited about doing our final show for season 3. It's been an amazing ride this season as we talked about many different topics and we hit on a lot of different good points. So make sure, if you haven't already, you make sure that you go and check out all the replays of our 7 shows that we've done over the course of time, from everything from community to just talking about the stigma that is behind Black women. So check out our YouTube channel at That's Life 03. I'm sorry, check out our YouTube channel at That's Life by Leah Leach, and you can go to our Facebook at That's Life 03 2020. As we always talk about, our sponsor of this week will be Mrs. Jamel Sanderson. If you're looking for a realtor in the Atlanta area, Jamel is your girl. You can get all her information on our ticker below, so please utilize her if you're looking for someone in the Atlanta area. Now, as we always talk about COVID because that's an ever fluid situation that's going on in our climate and in our world. As of right now, as it stands, COVID confirmed cases are over 76 million, guys, 76,126,000. Currently, we have over 1,683,000 deaths globally due to COVID-19. Please make sure that you're practicing safe practices. I know that I always talk about safe practices, but please make sure that you're following safe practices when it comes to COVID-19. I know that we're embarking the Christmas holiday and we want to get together, but we still want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and we're doing what is necessary in taking care of ourselves. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about PTSD, and PTSD is a very familiar topic to me. It cuts very close to the heart because this is something that I've experienced. We were going to have a special guest, which we're hoping that will still be able to join on our segment, Mr. Will from Atlanta Hitmakers. But as you can see, it's just me for right now. So I will hold down the fort and talk about my experience with PTSD. And I will also inform you about veterans and how it impacts veterans too. So when we come back, we're going to talk about PTSD and hopefully Will join us then. We'll be right back.
Looking to have your business or product advertised? Email us at thatslife0320@gmail.com. You can get affordable packaging as well as doing our ticker every weekend on our show on Saturdays for just $10. Email us at thatslife0320@gmail.com for packaging, pricing, and for further details.
And as you all know, I wrote my first book, Walking on an Unpaved Road. This is the journey of my breast cancer and everything I went through 3 years ago this time. So please support me in my new book. It is actually discounted if you order it directly through me for $15. You can also go on Amazon and order it for full price there. Welcome back to That's Life. I'm your host, Leah Leach. Thank you so much for tuning into our show today about PTSD and the impacts of PTSD. We were to have a special guest, Mr. Will from Atlanta Hitmakers, and we're hoping that he's still going to be able to join. But as you all know, the show must go on. So we're going to talk about PTSD and just a little bit about what it is and how it impacts veterans, but also how it impacts civilians as well, too. From the Southern California Sunrise Recovery Center, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a type of anxiety disorder that develops after exposure to a traumatic event. An event can be considered traumatic if it is considered terrifying, shocking, or extremely stressful. Military service members are at a considerable risk for developing PTSD due to the traumatic nature of combat. About 1.3 million active duty personnel are enlisted in the military, with the Army being the largest in the U.S. military, followed by the Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and ending with the Coast Guard. So I know we were supposed to have a special guest today, but I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with PTSD because this is something that's very close to home for me. As many of you all know, the Centennial Olympic Park bombing was a very renowned, it was very publicized in the newspapers, and it impacted so many people. I remember when the Olympics came to Atlanta, we were so excited. At that time, I was very young. I was 16 years old. It was an impactful event that happened into our city. And it was just so amazing to be able to see so many cultures from so many different sides of the world to come to into this country from everywhere and just be able to show their skill set and what they offered. Um, the event that changed my life, and still to this day, I struggle with it a lot. I go through ups and downs. There are moments where, excuse me, it's very difficult for me, was the Centennial Park bombing. In 1996, I went down to Centennial Olympic Park, which is now the hub for all the wonderful events that we do in the Atlanta area, including if you wanted to go see our beautiful Ferris wheel, it's literally directly across the street from it. I went to a concert that was actually being hosted in the Centennial Olympic Park. It was myself, my stepfather, and his son, as well as his niece, who had come to travel down from New York. And I just remember it being a beautiful day. It was a very hot day. It was in July. It was a very hot day. And I just remember being just kind of happy to just be out of the house and just to be around the event that we were in when it comes to the Centennial Olympic Park and just the whole Olympics itself. I remember we were walking towards the stage. We were trying to see who was on stage because there was someone performing, not a very renowned person, but a local artist that was coming in and was wanting to showcase his abilities and all the things that he offered. I remember walking towards the stage, and I was walking ahead with my cousin at the time, Eva, and I was walking towards the stage, and all of a sudden I heard a loud pow, a loud boom. I thought it was actually part of the show, not realizing that it was anything more than that. I thought it was just part of the show and that they were doing some pyrotechnics and that they were just doing some things related to the show. It was only then when I saw people that had fallen to the ground and the smoke had cleared and there was people and bodies everywhere that I realized that there was something majorly wrong. In the chaos of all things, I was, like I said, with my stepfather, I was with my cousin, and I was also with my stepbrother at the time. In the chaos and the mayhem of things, people were running and people were just going in different directions. And I lost track of everyone that I was with. I was scrambling. Of course, I was 16 years old. I didn't have anything. I didn't have identification. I didn't have a cell phone, definitely not for sure back in the 90s, early or late 90s rather. And I remember just feeling panicked and feeling very manic and feeling very scared. About maybe 5 to 7 minutes later, it probably, if in my mind it felt more, but it probably was only a few minutes more. I saw my cousin who was laying on the ground, and she was hit by a piece of shrapnel that had come from the stage. The impact of whatever it was, which I didn't know was a bomb at the time, but the impact of the blast had sent shrapnel flying everywhere, and it had hit my cousin. As you can imagine, it was very scary. There wasn't any emergency people out there, so they had to call for emergency people. They had to call for additional police. It was mayhem, and it was an experience that I will never forget. And it was one of those things that impacted the way that I view things. Even now into my 40s, I still struggle with moments, and I still have those moments of being scared and being fearful of the things that have come from that particular incident. And we're going to talk about those things because it's good therapy to be able to talk about the things that impact you. Because how can you grow if you don't talk about the things that are scary? So when we come back from our break, we're going to continue on the topic of PTSD. I know that we were supposed to have a guest today to talk about his experience and to talk about some of the experiences that he has seen relating to PTSD, but it's okay. We're going to make it work, and we're going to talk about the experiences that I've had with PTSD. So when we come back, we're going to finish off this conversation, and I'm going to give you some tips and tools on how to help someone that is suffering with PTSD, because there are a lot of people, veterans and non-veterans, that are suffering that we need to support. We'll be right back.
Breathing. To have your business or product advertised, email us at thatslife0320@gmail.com. You can get affordable packaging as well as doing our ticker every weekend on our show on Saturdays for just $10. Email us at thatslife0320@gmail.com for packaging, pricing, and for further details.
And as you all know, I wrote my first book, Walking on an Unpaved Road. You can purchase this book directly through me for the discounted price of $15 for the Christmas holiday season. You can also go on Amazon and order the book directly as well too. If you're interested in purchasing this book, you can go to our Instagram page at Walking on an Unpaved Road and get all the information related to pricing and how to order this book. Welcome back to That's Life. I'm your host, Leah Leach. Thank you so much for tuning into our show about PTSD. As you all know, we've been advertising that we were going to have a special guest. Unfortunately, he is unable to be a part of the show, but we're going to still make the show go on because that's what we do here at That's Life. So we were talking about my particular experience that led me to having PTSD and being diagnosed with PTSD. But before we continue on that topic, I just want to read another stat relating to PTSD. Another stat from Southern California Sunrise Recovery Center says that the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs reports up to 500,000 U.S. troops who have served in the past 13 years have developed PTSD. 11 to 20% of those were from Operations Iraqi Freedom and Operations Enduring Freedom. 30% of them were from the Vietnam War, 12% from the Gulf War, which is also called Desert Storm. There are 4 different types of PTSD: reliving the event, avoiding situations and trigger memories, negative changes in beliefs and feelings, and experiencing hyperarousal. It can also include vivid flashbacks, intrusive thoughts or images, nightmares and intense nightmares, distress at real or symbolic reminders of the trauma, and physical sensations such as pain, sweating, nausea, or trembling. Now, like I said, I know we were going to talk about veterans and PTSD, and it affects so many veterans, as you saw the statistics that we talked about. There are many veterans that are suffering with PTSD silently and don't really know how to approach their family and their friends about what they're experiencing and what they're going through. I'll talk about a little bit of my experience with PTSD as I experienced mine during the Centennial Olympic bombing. I never really talked, and still to this day, I haven't really talked to any of my family about that experience and what it did to me. As I stated before, I was 16 years old when I was a part of the Centennial Olympic bombing. My cousin was injured during the Centennial Olympic bombing, and there was a lot of different things that were going through my mind at that particular time. Once the responders and the police officers showed up at the scene during the event, it was a lot of mayhem, as you can imagine. There was a lot of people going in every direction. There were very severe injuries. There were some deaths that had occurred because of the bombing itself. And it was one of those things that now looking back, I could not have ever imagined to be a part of that type of situation. In the mayhem of everything that was going on, I had lost the people that I was with, and I had, for a second time, lost them as well with all the things that were going on. My cousin was rushed to a hospital, which I later found out was Grady, Atlanta. And my stepfather, which was her uncle, ended up going with her to be by her side, and I was to stay with my stepbrother. In the mayhem of everything, we lost each other, and I was walking alone in the streets of Atlanta by myself at 16 years old. I was scared. As you can imagine, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a pager. I literally had the clothes that were on my back, which was still to this day, I can remember wearing a black, red, and green striped shirt with red shorts and sneakers. Um, I was trying to look for my stepbrother because I just needed to be with somebody, obviously, who I know would keep me safe. I literally was walking around aimlessly until a news media person ran up to me and put a microphone to my mouth and said, "What happened?" And I just remember trying to talk. I had no voice. I was screaming because I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. And I remember talking to this media person and saying, "I just want to go home. I just want to be with my family. I don't know where my family is," and trying to explain my situation. Thankfully, I didn't have to experience anyone kidnapping me. I didn't have to worry about anybody taking me away. There were so many people that were helping me to try to get to a hospital to try to find my family. It was just a lot of mayhem and just being scared. I remember walking around Centennial Olympic Park, the area in which it was, and walking there for hours, just trying to find my stepbrother, trying to find someone that I knew that was familiar to me. It really wasn't until about 4, almost 5 in the morning, when I was able to actually get in contact. Now, mind you, the park bombing happened, I want to say maybe 10 o'clock at night. And it wasn't until 6 hours later, almost 6 hours later, before I found my family. Um, I was on media somehow, and it even got up to New Jersey. Even my father saw me in New Jersey on CNN. And I don't know if there's any media out there of me anymore. At this point, it doesn't really matter. But um, I just know that I was scared. And even talking about this moment, it still brings a lot of fear on me. Um, anyway, I was able to get to Grady Hospital. I don't know how, I don't know what way I was able to find my family amongst all these patients and doctors and everyone that was there. I was able to finally get to my family and see them. And as you can imagine, it was sweet relief that nothing had happened to me. It was sweet relief that really nothing major had happened to my cousin by marriage at that point. She had just had basically surface injuries. But it was a very, very scary moment in my life. Um, I also remember when I got to the hospital just being so tired and almost collapsing because I was so tired. She was in hospital for the day. She was discharged and we went home. I don't really remember much of the day outside of the fact that I went to my aunt's house. I do remember going home, but I also remember going to my aunt's house. I remember my aunt being very overcome by seeing me because somehow it had gotten back to her that I was in Centennial Olympic Park. I remember being just so physically exhausted. I remember eating ice cream because everybody was spoiling me because they were happy to see me. But I just remember being very scared and just still feeling very anxious, which I'm sure for a 16-year-old, that's to be expected. And so I think about all those things. And I also think about veterans that suffer who have gone through wartime scenarios and have been deployed over and over again. I want to send a special shout out to someone specific in my group who has been deployed many times, which is my cousin Joe. Joe, in my mind, when I think of a hero, and my dad has also been deployed, excuse me, as well as my uncle. But when I think about my cousin Joe has been deployed many times overseas. And I think about him because he's the epitome of a hero to me. As we play hero in the background, he's served his country with grace and with elegance. And I cannot imagine the things that he has seen when he's been deployed. I can't imagine the things that he has witnessed being deployed. I can't imagine the toll that it's taken on him as he's been deployed and on his family for that matter. I can experience it vicariously because of the experience that I went through at the Centennial Olympic Park bombing for one day. But we have veterans that are currently right now overseas And we have veterans that are here in the United States that are suffering with PTSD daily in silence. Some have actually gone and been diagnosed, but it is very difficult. And during the holiday season, it only gets more difficult because they're fighting internally with the feelings that they're feeling. So, part of what we're talking about is the diagnosis, but part of it is also just talking about ways and how we can support people. It's so important that we're supporting people that have gone through traumatic experiences. With me, I ended up having to go to a counselor, and I really didn't know the full magnitude of what the trauma was doing to me until my 21st birthday. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that experience was and how it led me to the point of being able to discuss PTSD. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I have it under control, because there are moments where it gets very difficult. And I'll talk about some of those moments too. But I think that it's very important that we're supporting people, particularly veterans, but we're also supporting all people that are going through PTSD, because it's a very real thing that needs a lot of support and needs some attention, especially now. When we come back, we're going to talk about some tips to support people when they're going through things. And I'm going to also finish the experiences that I went through when I went through my PTSD moment. We'll be right back.
Have your business or product advertised? Email us at thatslife0320@gmail.com. You can get affordable packaging as well as doing our ticker every weekend on our show on Saturdays for just $10. Email us at thatslife0320@gmail.com for packaging, pricing, and for further details.
And as you all know, I wrote my first book, Walking on an Unpaved Road. You can order the book directly through me on our Instagram page at Walking on an Unpaved Road for $15 as a discounted rate for the Christmas holiday. You can also go to Amazon and order directly through Amazon as well.
Lost touch with my soul. I had nowhere to turn. I had nowhere to go.
Welcome back to That's Life. I'm your host, Leah Leach. Thank you so much for tuning into our segment today about PTSD. We were to have a special guest, but unfortunately, we were unable to get him on the show, but it's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about PTSD and the things that's impacted me, as well as other veterans that are out there. As you all heard, I was a part of the Centennial Olympic Park bombing. I did not get injured. My cousin actually was one of the people that were injured during the actual bombing itself. But it left a lot of trauma on how I deal with things in my life. And as I was ending the last segment, we were talking about my experience and what I actually went through. On my 21st birthday, I didn't really realize that I had a lot of issues with PTSD until my 21st birthday. On my 21st birthday, I went out to Stone Mountain Park. And as many of you all know, if you live in Georgia, Stone Mountain Park is one of the bigger parks that are, it's an amusement park that does a lot of historical things related to history and just the state of Georgia itself. I remember going there with a friend of mine, and we were going to the laser show. And I was excited because this was my first time going out. And of course, I was 21. So you already know I was going to be drinking and enjoying my life. And so I went to the laser show with a friend of mine. And unbeknownst to me, there was a firework. I didn't know what laser meant. I didn't know that it had to do with fireworks. And the fireworks went off and I lost it. I began to cry. I started shaking. I didn't really know where I was. I almost to some point was incoherent. My friend was trying to calm me down. She was trying to do things that she could know to do at 21. But of course, she didn't really know the magnitude of my experiences with the things that I had gone through prior. We went into the car. I remember just feeling out of place and displaced. And as a typical 21-year-old, she gave me a shot and I went to sleep. And I woke up the next day as if nothing had happened. Um, It wasn't until my 23rd, 24th birthday that I revisited the same thing again, not realizing that noises, loud noises, popping noises. I remember being in the military and having to go to the gun range, and every time I shot a gun, being nervous about shooting a gun. Going to a party and they have fireworks, being nervous about being around fireworks. Now it is to the point where if my wife is opening a can of biscuits, the popping noise from opening a can of biscuits sends me into a frenzy and it makes me scared and it actually will make my heart race. And so I didn't really know what it was. I really didn't know how to deal with it. And I didn't really get help until my 30th birthday. 14 years later is when I really started to figure out what is going on with me. I went to a counselor at the time when I was attending Clayton State University, and I went to a counselor, and my wife and I were both basically seeing counselors simultaneously at the same time. She was seeing a counselor for one thing, and I was seeing a counselor for something separate. And it wasn't until I started to tell her about the anxiousness I attributed to anxiety. And my counselor told me at that point that she believed that I was suffering with PTSD. Um, of course, like typical people, I associated PTSD with the military because, nobody goes, no regular people like me, we don't go through trauma. What does that mean? And I didn't really take it seriously. I can honestly say, even though she diagnosed me at 30, I still suffer with PTSD. Ironically, we were also going to talk about this with, we actually had a conversation with this. My wife and I both today talked to a counselor just this afternoon, my son's counselor, because we were talking about the show and the things that were going on. Dr. Jones at Stepping Stones Intervention, which, by the way, let me put the plug. If you're looking for a good counselor, definitely check them out because they're a very good counseling session and counseling place. But Dr. Jones was the one who actually told me today, you need to go and you need to see somebody and deal with your post traumatic stress disorder. And today, I can actually say for the first time in my life, it really hit me that I've had this diagnosis and I have this thing that has impacted my life for so long. And I was scared to just being able to talk about it out loud. I think it's so important that we as people have to stop denying when stuff is wrong with us. Even now in our COVID season, we're all going through some type of trauma. This is not normal to walk around with masks on our face, to have COVID testing, to have things going in our noses and having to deal with all the things that are coming with COVID-19. It's trauma, people. We are going through it. It is difficult. It is a hard process. And I think that we as people have to stop denying to ourselves that we are okay because we're not okay. Okay. Even if we're not okay to the point of just you have a little bit of anxiety versus when you have major anxiety. As we talked about earlier in the year when we did our show, A Better You, A Better Me, one of the things I talked about was anxiety and how my blood pressure had taken such a toll on my body because of all the stress and all the traumas that I had gone through. So please, people, if you need help, especially if you live in the Atlanta area, I'll speak in the Atlanta area. If you live in that Atlanta area, seek help through Stepping Stones Intervention Services. They're a wonderful organization, a wonderful center that is helping people with PTSD and all the other things that come with it. And they even offer occupational therapy. But if you don't live in the Atlanta area, no matter where you are, go and seek help because we're all kind of dealing with this thing. We all need a little bit of crisis management right now because this has been very difficult on us, COVID-19. So now we're going to talk about some ways to support people during PTSD. Now, I initially, when we wrote these tips, we did this specifically for veterans alone. But I believe that these tips could be just as helpful for anyone that's experiencing PTSD. And this is not me giving you the tips and you don't do something with it. It's me giving you the tips and you utilizing them and being what you need to do is being proactive about fixing the problem. Okay. So, number one, learn as much as you can about PTSD. One of the things that I did for myself when I turned 30 was I learned about what PTSD is and how it impacts me and how it impacts my body. As you all know, as I talked about, I still have bouts with being scared and rapid heartbeat and sweating. My wife and I actually attended an event last year with a friend of ours, and unbeknownst to my wife and I, there was a firework display. We didn't know. We were literally in feet of where they were shooting the fireworks. And I remember just being so scared, heart racing. It was almost like I couldn't even breathe. And my wife had enough decency, my wife and my friend and his spouse at the time had enough decency to put me in the car, drive me away, get my heart rate to calm down, and did things to be able to calm me down so that I could be good. They cracked jokes and did the things that they knew to do for me. I'm not telling you to, go and get medicated. If that's what you want to do, then do what's best and necessary. But learn about what PTSD and how it impacts you and what it looks like. Because I think, like I said, we always want to attribute PTSD to the military, but it also can happen to you as a civilian. Okay. So the resources that you can use for PTSD is I use Google. Like I used her to be able to navigate what it was and what I could do to help myself. Um, for veterans, you have the VA. They are there to support you to be able to get back on track. There are lots of good counselors, wholesome counselors that are out there to help you to get through what you're going through. So utilize them. Number two, offer to help family members and friends by going to the doctor visits and consultations. It's very important that you have a strong team that supports you and that stands behind you. I am very fortunate that I have a spouse who is understanding, who knows the triggers. We have Christmas and New Year's getting ready to come up. She always has her headphones ready to go to put over my ears so I don't hear fireworks and that I don't lose my mind when I go through those moments. It's good to have strong people near you that can help keep you when you feel scared, and who will tell you the truth when you need to hear the truth too. Number three, tell your loved ones. You'll want them to listen. They'll understand, and they'll understand if you don't feel like talking. And sometimes it's good to have somebody who doesn't talk. Sometimes it's best to just listen to the person that's going through PTSD. A lot of times I think as family, as support, we always want to try to fix the problem, but that might not be your job. Your job may be just to be an ear, to listen to their story and to just listen to their experience. Number four, plan a fun family activity together. I'm thankful for the fact, like I said, that I have a very fun family and we do things as a family that limit the amount of stress that I feel. Whether it's we play Mario Party on Nintendo Switch, whether it be we play Kahoot, whether it be that we just play music and we just have dance offs, whatever that looks like, plan something that will keep you calm. Number five, encourage contact with family and close friends. Well, that's a tricky one because now we're in COVID-19. So I know that that's a little bit difficult, but you can still find ways to be in close contact with your family and friends. Zoom calls, Google Meet, Facebook party rooms. Utilize something that's going to be able to give you the contact that you need, but obviously staying safe because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Number six, and the final one, is take a walk, go for a bike ride, or do something physical. One of the biggest things that I realized with my PTSD is that it's triggered by not exercising. The more that I'm exercising, the less likely I am to get anxious. That's not to say that I won't get anxious, because I will, but my anxiousness seems to reduce when I'm doing something physical. And I'm all about walking. That is something that we do in our household. We haven't done it in quite some time, but that's my fault. But walking is a very good exercise that you can do 30 minutes a day and just get some sweat out and get some good energy going in through you, and being able to just be able to take a deep, fresh breath of air, not being indoors, because sometimes being indoors and being behind four walls makes that experience a little bit harder. So definitely use those tips, but also seek help. There is plenty of resources out there that you can utilize to seek help and to get what you need in terms of helping you with your PTSD. I really hope that although we didn't have our guests, I really hope that you got something out of the show today. I hope that I've inspired you in some way to help somebody along the way, because we're all going through something. Like I said, this has been a very traumatic year for all of us. And as we close out the year, nobody could have expected that COVID-19 would have been the thing that has caused us to go through trauma. But you know what, people, it is all good. And I'm going to tell you this, and this is from my heart to you all of you all that are watching. PTSD, anxiety, all these things that we go through, there are so many ways that we can take care of that we don't have to keep it inside, and we don't have to worry about trying to figure it out on our own. The best thing that you can do for yourself, especially now in this holiday season, is to go to someone that you trust. Like I said, I'm thankful I have a team of people that I trust that are in my corner. Find someone that you trust. Don't be alone in your thoughts. Don't let your pride hold you back from not being able to talk to someone. As I told a friend of mine this afternoon, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. Nobody knows if you're hurting. Nobody knows if you're suffering if you don't talk. Okay? So go and talk to somebody. This is me caring about you and wanting what's best for you. Okay? Now, as you always know, we close out with a quote as well as a Bible verse. So this Bible verse, or I'm sorry, this quote is actually for our veterans. And I do want to salute our veterans, to all of those that are in the military. You, if it weren't for you, none of this is possible. You fight for our freedom. You fight the hard fight that you have to go through. You have to deal with the government and all the things that are going on with our government. And yet you still do it with elegance. As a veteran, I salute all my other veterans that are out there. I'm thankful to have represented the United States Air Force for 6 years. I'm thankful to every service member that has been a part of the military. I will specifically shout out the service members that I know that are in my corner and in my circle, starting with my wife, who is U.S. Army, my father, which is U.S. Air Force, my uncle Ricky, Uncle James, which is U.S. Army, my brother Noah, U.S. Air Force, my brother Chris, U.S. Air Force, Auntie Tasha, who is also U.S. Army, and one other one, which I cannot remember right now. Oh, Joe. Thank you. Cousin Joe, who is also in the U.S. Army. If I left you out, don't charge it to my heart, charge it to my head, because you know this is a free ball show. So for all the service members that are out there, thank you for your service and what you offer to us. The willingness of the American veteran is to sacrifice for our country has earned them our everlasting gratitude. And that's from Jeff Miller. Our Bible verse of this evening, John 15:12-13. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. My friends, I'm asking you, if you need help, seek help. Okay? And if you need to know where to go, you can email me at that'slife0320@gmail.com, and I will get the resources that you need to be able to help you. I love you. Have a wonderful Christmas. Have a wonderful New Year's until we see each other again January 29th. And if you live in Atlanta, go vote. All right. I love you. See you guys next time. Bye.